Today it's movie recap time for Hobo with a Shotgun, an action movie released in 2011. The movie kicks off by introducing us to an aged vagabond, also known as Hobo, catching a ride aboard a train. Soon after, he disembarks and steps into a city named Hope Town. The city's welcome sign presents it as Scum Town. We follow Hobo as he strolls along the streets, pushing a cart filled with a vast collection of abandoned items. As he wanders around, he crosses paths with a young filmmaker capturing a street brawl on camera. The filmmaker sees Hobo and offers him $10 to join the fight. Hobo simply ignores the man and moves on. Not long after, he hears a man desperately calling for help. The cries come from a man named Logan. Covered in blood and with a manhole cover awkwardly perched around his neck, Logan reaches out to everyone around him, begging for someone to untie his hands. Yet, not a single soul is willing to help him. A sleek modern white car rolls onto the scene. As Logan locks eyes with Hobo and begs for his help as well, Hobo simply continues his path. All of a sudden, a compact truck appears and slams into Hobo's shopping cart, scattering his collection of belongings all over the place. In the wake of this chaos, a figure named Drake emerges from the truck, dressed in an immaculate white suit. Meanwhile, Drake's two sons, Slick and Ivan, step out of the white car, calling Logan a traitor. As they make fun of his situation, it becomes clear that Logan is actually Drake's younger brother. As everyone stares at the scene, Slick and Ivan grab their uncle and forcibly take him toward a manhole. They throw him down the hole, suspending his body and leaving only his head above the ground. As if it were all a show, Drake addresses the spectators, casting Logan as an unwitting participant in this disturbing performance. After securing a coil of barbed wire around Logan's neck, they tie the other end to the truck. Drake gives the command, and as expected, the car accelerates at a high speed, separating Logan's head from the rest of his body. As if it were a warning, Logan's brother takes his head and shows it for everyone to see. In the midst of this turmoil, Hobo retrieves his scattered possessions and resumes walking around the city. He soon stumbles upon a pawn shop, where his gaze locks onto a lawn mower. After watching a short video about it and checking the price tag, he complains about the price and moves on. That very same night, Hobo takes up a spot on a walkway, holding up a sign that asks for money so he can buy a lawnmower. Regrettably, some obnoxious punk teens walk by and spit on his sign. After a while, Hobo spots Slick stepping out of his fancy car and walking into a building. He decides to follow Drake's son and also goes inside. He walks in on a disturbing scene. Drake's crew is playing some kind of twisted game where they use bumper cars to end people's lives. Hobo simply stays in a corner, watching. In the meantime, Slick gives a hard time to a kid called Otis, who owes him money. Just when things are getting rough, an escort named Abby steps in, urging Slick to let it slide. As Abby walks away, Slick chases after her. The guy attempts to convince her to go somewhere else, promising her a sweet payout. Hobo, quietly tailing every move, follows them like a shadow. As Slick and Abby begin making out, their private moment gets interrupted by a masked intruder who bursts in through the garage door. Apparently, he's there to kidnap Abby, following Slick's orders. At the same time, Hobo shows up and puts a halt to their plan. Slick pulls out a knife and begins moving toward Hobo. In a twist, the old man takes a bag of coins and knocks Slick out cold.
Serves you right.
Like a real hero, he hoists Slick up and marches him over to the police station. He dumps him on the counter, telling the cops to lock him up for good. After saying he wants a word with the chief of police, they point him to an interrogation room. Soon after, a high-ranking police officer walks into the room. Hobo quickly lays it all out, telling the officer that the number of criminals in the town is outrageous. The man urges him to do something to change that scenario. The officer quickly notices that Hobo is not a local, so he shares that, unfortunately, a large number of the cops in town are involved with Drake. All of a sudden, the officer pulls out a gun and points it at Hobo. At the same time, Drake's sons storm in. They begin beating up Hobo, showing him who owns the city. Slick gets a knife and carves the word Scum right onto Hobo's chest. Finally, they send him away by tossing him into a trash bin. Meanwhile, Abby's in the middle of trying to work out a deal with a guy for the night. All of a sudden, Hobo stumbles upon her, all battered and bruised. Seeing his condition, she takes him back to her place and takes care of him. She's kind enough to let him crash at her place for the night. The next morning, Hobo wakes up and goes to see the sick filmmaker he met before. He decides to accept his offer and participate in the show. The old man does some messed up things for money, like smashing a glass bottle on his own head and chewing on the shards. After he gets his hard-earned money, he pays a visit to the pawn shop from before. Just as he decides to buy the lawnmower, 3 robbers barge in. They quickly take a woman and her child hostage. They pressure the shop owner to hand over all of his cash. Watching all this go down, Hobo decides to act. He snatches up a shotgun from a nearby shelf, and with deadly precision, he eliminates the robbers one by one. As he realizes that Hope Town is drowning in crime, he has a change of heart. Instead of purchasing the lawnmower, he opts for the shotgun. From that moment on, Hobo dives into a one-man mission to weed out as many criminals as he can. Carrying his shotgun everywhere he goes, Hobo begins with the sick filmmaker. He moves on to a pimp, a drug dealer, and even a creep disguising himself as Santa Claus. With every move, he delivers a dose of justice to those who've caused pain to the innocent. Word of his fearless actions spread like wildfire, even making the news. But that also means that the bad guys start noticing. Furious, Drake yells at his sons for letting Hobo go free after messing with Slick. Humiliated, Ivan and Slick go on a mission to capture Hobo and earn their father's approval. In an attempt to terrorize the city, the brothers hijack a school bus, and without mercy, they use a flamethrower while some kids are inside. The brutality escalates further as they storm a television station right in the middle of a live broadcast. They eliminate the anchorman for daring to praise Hobo. Seizing control of the broadcast, they deliver a threat to the entire public. If they don't exterminate all the homeless people in town, their own kids will meet the same gruesome end. The town spirals into chaos as its citizens begin hunting homeless people. In the midst of this madness, Abby's on her way home when 2 officers see her. One of them, driven by his urges, decides to have her for the night. However, Abby rejects his advances and runs away from the dirty cop. The officer chases her down and traps her near a dumpster. As he's about to commit a terrible act, Hobo steps in, wielding his shotgun, and ends his miserable life. Just as he offers to walk Abby back to her place, a big crowd starts heading their way after hearing the gunshots. Quick on her feet, Abby hides Hobo in a shopping cart and covers him up with the remains of the officer. The plan works like a charm, and they go unnoticed right through the crowd. Eventually, they make it to Abby's place, and Hobo gets to climb out of the cart. Unluckily for them, Otis spots them and promptly lets Slick and Ivan know of Hobo's location. Inside Abby's apartment, Hobo shares his idea of starting a lawn mowing business. The old man wants to break away from all that violence and make an honest living. Surprisingly, Abby loves the idea and wants to be his business partner. She points out that they need to leave Hope Town right away and start fresh. However, before they get on their way, the brothers show up at the apartment wearing ice skates. Ivan uses his shoes to inflict some serious damage on Hobo. Meanwhile, Slick messes around with Abby with her back against a wall. To defend herself, she grabs a shard of glass and slashes him across the face. As Abby runs to her bedroom, Slick chases after her and pins her down. He gets his hands on a saw and attacks the woman's neck. In the living room, Hobo uses a toaster to prevent an attack. He then smartly turns it on, electrocuting Ivan. After hearing Abby's screams, he charges to her rescue. Holding Slick at gunpoint, Hobo drags the man out of the apartment. Slick pleads for mercy, but Hobo shoots him right in the groin. In the midst of all the chaos, Ivan comes to his senses and scrambles away, making his escape. Hobo loads Abby onto his trusty shopping cart and races with her to a nearby hospital. Slick, severely injured, calls his father and lets him know what just happened. He tells Drake he's not going to make it and starts hallucinating. In his twisted vision, Hobo traps him on a fiery bus, dooming him to a horrific end. As Slick passes away, Hobo makes it to the hospital. Taking matters into his own hands, he threatens the medical staff to immediately look after Abby. The doctors comply, rushing Abby into surgery. Meanwhile, Drake decides to summon a pair of armored warriors after losing his son. They're known as the Plague. The next day, Abby wakes up in the hospital and sees Hobo next to her. In a heartfelt gesture, he hands her a small potted flower and tells her he needs to go. Abby protests, telling him that he can't solve all of the world's problems with his shotgun. Hobo agrees with her but leaves anyway. Walking down the corridor, he passes by the maternity ward. He stops for a moment and addresses the newborns, sharing his concerns about their future in the crime-filled town. Following Drake's orders, the plague storms the hospital and eliminates people from the staff, apparently for fun. Hobo hears all the noise and rushes back to Abby's room. However, one of the armored warriors pretends to be Abby, and they manage to capture Hobo. They toss him into a kind of coffin and drag him to Drake's place. Meanwhile, Abby begins a rescue mission. She breaks into the pawn shop and rigs up her own makeshift weapon, merging an axe with Hobo's shotgun. She also transforms a lawnmower into a type of shield. Just as she's about to head out, she's met with a crowd. Still following Drake's twisted orders, they want to know if she's a homeless person. Fed up, she faces the crowd and gives a passionate speech that fiercely advocates for the rights and dignity of the homeless. Elsewhere, Drake addresses a crowd, announcing his new gory show. As they watch and cheer, the plague grabs Hobo and secures a manhole lid around his neck, just like it was done to Logan. So, they lower him into a hole for a public execution. Just in time, Abby makes her way there and holds Ivan hostage. She demands that Drake release Hobo right away. In a shocking twist, the ruthless man ends his own son's life. With Ivan out of the way, one of the warriors sets his sights on Abby, while the other stands ready to carry out Hobo's execution. Surprisingly, Abby overpowers the armored man with her ingenious weapon. Just before the other warrior stretches the rope, Abby cuts it with an axe and spares him from losing his head. Drake then decides to get his hands dirty. He captures Abby and brutally forces her hand against the lawnmower shield, making her lose one hand. Even though she's badly hurt, Abby launches a counterattack, using her exposed arm bone to poke Drake relentlessly. In a swift turn of events, she rushes to Hobo's aid, prompting him to point his shotgun at the warrior still alive. Free from Drake's orders, the warrior retreats and leaves. Hobo then approaches Drake, shotgun in hand. As he's about to finish the gangster, multiple police officers arrive at the scene. They demand that Hobo surrender right away. Surprisingly, the townspeople switch sides and show their support for Hobo. They raise their guns and threaten to shoot. Strengthened by this united front, Hobo brings Drake's reign to an end. He eliminates the man with a shot to the face. Unfortunately, the police open fire in response, while the townspeople also retaliate. This unleashes a torrent of bullets all over the place, with lots of people losing their lives. After seeing her friend perish, Abby's anguished screams can be heard in the background. Thanks for watching. If you like our content, please like the video and don't forget to subscribe.